Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp, and welcome back to another card making video. So today we're looking at the newest issue of Simply Cards and Papercraft. This is issue 212, and this set is called Fabulous Fizz. So we've got dies and we've got stamps with sentiments in this month's free gift. So first of all, let's take a look at some of the inspiration actually in the magazine itself. So as always, there's loads of really great inspiration in the magazine, lots of really colourful kinds of cards, and a really great use of all of these items that come in this Fabulous Fizz free gift. So we've got lots of different kinds of concept cards in here. We've got shaker cards, lots of different techniques on using the stamps to create really fun backgrounds, which is what we're going to do in today's video. We've got things like these box cards in here as well. And of course, then because of the time of year, obviously with the new year coming up, it's going to be perfect for creating New Year's Eve decorations. So you can see some inspiration in here, creating those kind of decorations. They've also created a keychain using the stamps and using shrink plastic. Not something that I've actually done myself, but I have seen it sort of demonstrated, and it's really cool that you can again create some really great sort of maybe nice gifts if you're able to get together with sort of friends and families. You can create some really lovely little gifts with this set. So again, you can see here lots of different types of cards here, and this is then using the free gift from the die cutting essential. So that has got the big celebrate die cut, and again you've got lots of little dies in there like the candles and then the flute glasses. It's going to work really perfectly together. So maybe later in the month we'll have a look at combining these two sets together and creating something great there. So again, loads and loads of inspiration. Let's take a look at what's going to be included in next month's issue. So we've got the January 2021 issue. This is going to come with an embossing folder, layering dies and stamps. So really getting into sort of a new year and yeah, looking at something a little bit more floral. But for now, let's get into creating the card for today's video. So I was intending to create a slimline card. So you can see that I've cut myself a panel that would have fitted onto a slimline sized card, but decided to go for a 5.5 by 4.25 size instead. This was mainly because the elements that I'd die cut and stamped, I didn't really have a lot to kind of fill up a slimline size card, so I decided to just trim the background down. But I am going to start off by creating a background first. So I've taken one of these sort of party background stamps onto some watercolour cardstock. I'm going to stamp this with the Versamark clear embossing ink. So I'm going to do a little bit of heat resist embossing here. So I'm just stamping this image. So because this is thick watercolour cardstock, I really couldn't see where I was stamping, but because of the type of image I was using, it really doesn't matter too much. But I do end up stamping this. I can fit 3 stamps across the top, but I decided to do a row and then pour on my embossing powder. So I don't heat set this straight away. I heat set it when I've covered the whole background. But this at least just gives me an idea of where I am stamping the image. So because there wasn't really much to see, I have kind of skipped past this right to the end. So I'm just coming to the bottom now, and then like I said, for every row, pour the embossing powder on. You can kind of see it just as it catches the light. So this has created a really lovely background. It's really, really subtle. If you did watch my last craft haul video that I posted, I think it was Tuesday, I showed you that I just purchased some of the Nuvo Shimmer powders, and we're going to use that. I was really keen to use it sort of straight away. And we're going to create a background with those. So that's why I wanted to create this kind of white embossed background. But like I said, it takes a little bit of work just to make sure that you don't kind of stamp over your images. But I really do think that it creates really beautiful kinds of backgrounds. So once you've got all your stamping done and all of the embossing powder on, I'm just going to go ahead and melt this with my heat gun. I am just going to let this sit and cool down for a little bit before we sort of start this next section. So I'm taking the Atlantis Burst colour in this Nuvo Shimmer powder range, and you can see that I'm just tapping this really carefully, really lightly over my background. So you can see there's not a lot of powder gone down, and then I'm just going to spritz it with some water, and you can see how that powder is going to mix straight away with the water, and it gives you a really cool sort of watercolour style background. You can see lots of different colours. You can't quite see the shimmer and that on camera, but in person it does make the most beautiful sort of shimmery backgrounds. So I'm just holding my pokey tool just to sort of flatten out my cardstock a little bit, because it did start to curl and I didn't want all of that colour to kind of go to the edges and then off my paper. So you can do this two ways. You can put the powder down first and then add the water, or you can put the water down first and then add your powder to the top. So because it's already wet, I'm then adding on some of this solar flare. So this is a yellow, and then I just spritz a little bit more water in the areas that needed it. I am really loving these shimmer powders already. I've used them a couple times just in my own crafting. I'm just sort of getting used to using them. So the way that I've done it here today, obviously I'm using quite a lot of water, and because then it's pooling off onto my glass mat, I am just sort of trying to tidy up a little bit as I go and mop up some of that water, just so it doesn't kind of pool too much and then like wreck my cardstock. But you can see I'm just literally moving my cardstock around, getting that colour around, and the more you kind of do this, the more water you add to it, the more those colours mix together. But if you leave it alone a little bit more than maybe what I have in this video, then you will kind of get those separate colours a little bit more, but I wanted to just try and get a little bit of variation on it. So what I'm going to do is leave this to dry for the moment, and we will get the most beautiful background. So while that's drying, then we're just going to go ahead and do a little bit of die cutting. So I'm going to die cut this champagne bottle, and then within this set they've got a few accessories that you can decorate then your bottles. So you've got two different kinds of labels, and then there are a couple of stamps within the set that will fit within that label die. So you could then use the word clink in there. You could pop others if you've got other sort of smaller stamps that will sort of fit in there. Then you could really kind of customize it yourself. So for the bottle itself, I'm going to cut this from this navy blue cardstock. This is the Craft Perfect by Tonic Studios. This is their weaved design. So I'm just going to die cut that really simply from this cardstock, and then those labels I've cut from some gold mirror card, just to add a little bit of elegance to the card itself. So I've just run that through my Gemini, and it's cut really perfectly. And actually that Craft Perfect, this is the first time I've used that cardstock, and it did die cut really beautifully. It didn't lose any of that sort of weaved design or pattern. So yeah, it is, from what I've used of it so far, it is a great cardstock. So you can see how this is going to come together. So of course you could design this a lot more. Again, like I said earlier, you could customize this if you wanted to, but a really great kind of all-around edition for any sort of kinds of occasions, celebrations. And what I do really love about this stamp set included, and probably what I'll make the most out of, is the sentiments. You've got things like engagement in there. There are some really great sentiments that can be used all year round for all different kinds of occasions. So I think it's great when they include a big variety. And of course then you compare that with these kind of dies for celebrations and things. I think it's just going to work perfectly together. So I've just used my purple tape runner to adhere down those labels onto the bottle itself. And I've also stamped the champagne glass. I've done 2 of those. I've cut them out. I've just done a little bit of colouring, and I used one of the Spectrum Noir shimmer pens in, I think it was the champagne colour, which is just like a glittery kind of ink. So it's not like a solid colour, but it does give the illusion that it is kind of filled up with a sort of rose champagne coloured liquid. I also then did a sentiment, so you can see that to the side. That's the Pop Fizz Clink. So you could cut this up and use it as 3 sort of separate pieces, or just one long sentiment, which I'm going to use on my card. So I'm just cutting down my panel. So I'm going to take some more of that navy cardstock. This is going to be my matte and layer. So I'm going to pop that onto my pre-made card base. So this is just a top folding 5.5 by 4.25 inch card. And you can see I'm just popping down then my cardstock, again using that tape runner. So this was something that I purchased last week, and I'm really happy because it's just really convenient to have it, and I do think it is a great adhesive. You can see now my background is finished and it's dry, and it really does give the most beautiful kind of subtle background colours. It's really a beautiful watercolour. It has got a couple of the sort of thicker watercolour marks. I did use my heat gun on it as well, because I do love those sort of lines of the deeper bit of colour, but if you really want to have it blended and nothing like that, then just leave it to dry naturally. So I'm just going to cut down then my sentiment. So I did end up cutting the bottom of this straight, and then I decided that there was too much sort of blank space because the F is quite big in the word fizz, and it left a lot of blank space above that pop and clink. So I did decide just to take my scissors and just sort of cut around the fizz, but then straight across the top, the pop and the clink. So this just adds something a little different to the sentiment itself, because I did just stamp it onto some white cardstock with black ink. I then matte and layered this with that same navy cardstock as well. So before I put my sentiment onto the card, I'm just going to adhere down the other elements just so I get the placement just right, again using then that tape pen. So you can see, because these were the only bits and pieces that I kind of cut and coloured, like I said, I couldn't really get it to fit onto a slimline size card. That's why I decided then just to bring down the size and make a smaller card. So I put my sentiment onto some foam pads just to add a little bit of dimension. So there isn't anything specific for any sort of occasion on this card. So it is very much just a celebration kind of card. So this really could be used for so many different kinds of occasions, whether it is New Year, whether it is an engagement, just a celebration generally. So you can make sort of more generic kinds of cards. And of course, then you could make more specific cards using the sentiments that come in the stamp set. So that's it for this card and this video. So that was the first look at the issue 212 of Simply Cards and Papercraft. So if you did like this card and the video, then please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. So that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.